Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 17th, 2024 council meeting. Prior to the open session, council met for a closed meeting. I apologize for it running later than anyway. That pursuant to section 239, 2 and 3 of the Municipal Act, SO 2001, C25 is amended. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moves to a special meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land for municipal or local board purposes, property disposition. F, advice that's subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, potential code of conduct violations affecting the town of Parry Sound, and that meeting was held. As a reminder, this meeting is live and streamed and recorded, and you can go to the Town of Parry Sound website at www.parrysound.ca and access the council meetings. I'd also acknowledge at this time that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. Now, may I have a mover and seconder for the agenda? Councillor McCann and Councillor Bileski. Now, is there anything to add to the meeting? The Whitestone resolution? Yes. Okay. There is a resolution to support Whitestone's resolution with regard to the school board, the school, which I've asked to have added to the agenda. And the Whitestone resolution is in our correspondence for tonight. Is there anything else? No? We're all good with that one? Okay, all right. All in favor then of the agenda as amended? That's carried. Thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest of the general nature thereof? No? Okay. Mover and seconder for the minutes. Councillor McCann, Councillor McDonald, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held September 3rd, 2024 be approved as circulated. Any discussion or comments on those minutes? Councillor McCann.
Yes, item 954. I noticed that it was corrected on the official one that was filed, but for the public version, which is online, it still has myself as seconding that motion. That was for Parry Sound Community Association, Radio Association, and I inadvertently signed that, and just to show good faith, Mr. McDonald signed it for us. So, but I noticed that I'm still reflected in the public.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. We can get that correct. Yeah, thank you. Anything further? All in favor then? And that's carried. Thank you. Questions of staff? Councillor McCann?
Thank you. This is for Mr. Kearns. Just one simple question for you tonight. I noticed, and maybe this is not for you, I don't know that if this should be directed to another department, but I noticed that the stocky sign, the one with the Bobby Orr icon that sits on the pole right next to the road, not up at the building. It seems to, where it says Stocky Center, it's all blacked out. And I've noticed that the screen below hasn't been working for a while. Are there plans to get that fixed? Because it does sort of, take something away from the Stocky Center when it's like that.
Okay. Mr. Harris?
Through the mayor, I'll respond to Councillor McCann's question. I'll follow up with staff. I know they've been trying to get, and I don't know if the supplier getting them or parts, the sign's quite old, but I'll follow up and see what, and let council know what what's going on with the sign, because it has been some time that the bottom portion hasn't been working.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I have three questions. First question, seeing as Mr. Harris is already, shall we say, explaining things. I noticed that Ms. Herdman retired some months ago from now, and she was the admin assistant in cemetery. Also contact her assistant there. And I'm wondering what happened to that position now, because there isn't somebody specifically in that position. So how are the roles happening?
Through the mayor, Councillor Keith, excuse me. Public works staff have been assisting with cemeteries in the interim. There was a thought that to have cemeteries integrated with public works versus the admin department made sense. And there was discussions and some training, and we're just sort of evaluating, does the public works staff as they exist now have the capacity to take on cemeteries in its fullest? So that's where cemetery sits.
Thank you. The other two questions certainly do have to do with public works. One would be for Mr. Bonanza, and it has to do with my question the last time around, for example, on Bow Street, where the manholes are, that seem to me there needs to be some leveling with the micro surfacing. What's the status now with that, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we've been in consultation, back and forth with the contractor, and we found a good solution that they think is going to rectify the issue with the least kind of damage to the double surface. And I contacted them today. I'm just awaiting on a date for them to come back, that they can come back and do that for us.
And thank you. So just for clarification, do they expect that it will be when they come back, which we assume before winter, that it'll be like a one shot, like one time event, that they'll be able to rectify that matter?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's what we're looking at.
Thank you. My last question is to do with Mr. Cairns. Thank you. And Mr. Cairns, I'm just wondering if there, as I've been contacted by some of the people on Church Street, where we certainly had that retaining wall done, and there had been a pathway in front of their place. And certainly the impression now, maybe it's Mr. Bonanza that will be answering the question, but in any event, was a pathway basically in front of some of that property that when the sidewalk, shall we say, run out. And the concern now is that when winter time comes, if there's no clearing of snow in that area, then how will the postman deliver mail to them? Because we understand that Canada Post, if driveways, etc., aren't clean so that they can walk, mail doesn't get delivered. And two, is there any solution that they can count on at this point?
Through you, your worship. So I believe you're referring to what we would think of as the west side of Church Street. Should it run north and south in that direction? So I don't want to comment specifically on Canada Post because I don't know what their policies in that are, especially when there is not a sidewalk adjacent to that side of the roadway. Whether their post people will use the roadway to access the walkway should the mailbox be on the front of the house. That could be a possibility. Those particular households also have a back lane where there are, I think for the majority of them, I can't recall all of them off the top of my head, but there are accesses off the back lane to a lot of those residences. So certainly in the wintertime, I think a number of them do park out there, maybe not all of them. There are driveways that were installed on the front side. The biggest challenge to the access to those properties was the redevelopment of Church Street quite some time ago. And now in some folks' minds, it wasn't that long ago, but the elevation of the street was changed significantly, which led to some very steep driveways, which posed challenges in trying to establish a sidewalk on that side of the road. So I can certainly perhaps follow up with Canada Post and find out what their policies are in terms of, I know we do have a number of streets, there are no sidewalks that perhaps receive mail deliveries. So I would assume that that may not be the limiting factor in terms of them delivering to certain households. But we could certainly take a look at the back lane option if that's something we can help facilitate as well.
So just for clarification, so I'm getting the impression when winter comes and snow eventually comes here, that area that would be on the west side, but in front of the houses there in that limited area, I take it there would be no snow removal. So therefore they can't easily access walking on that same side of the road. Somehow they have to jaywalk or whatever to get to the other side for those few houses. That's part of the concern.
Through your worship, that is correct. So that would be, I'm not sure if last winter was the first winter in which we didn't plow that side of the road or remove snow in an area of a walkway. I don't want to refer to it as a sidewalk. It was never actually designed as a sidewalk nor built to be a sidewalk. And as I mentioned, some of the slopes of those driveways don't really allow us to have a compliant sidewalk built there. Some years ago, it started to be cleared with the sidewalk machines. It's ended up in rutting in the interlocking stone. And there is quite a variation in the angle when the driveways are encountered in certain areas. And that was becoming hazardous to the operators of the snow removal equipment for the town. It would actually kick the machine onto the roadway in certain circumstances into oncoming traffic. So that was part of the reasoning in stopping that practice. You are correct. There are walkways that kind of come straight out to the road. They never did join up to a sidewalk, but perhaps that's the discussion we can have with Canada Post and just open up the topic of discussion on behalf of just maybe not, I don't want to say on behalf of the residents, but we can find out that information ahead of time and have that discussion and see if that's something that they're willing to consider for the safety of their employees as well.
I think certainly that would be appreciated because some of the people in that area may have accessibility issues and then finding out now that they may not be able to get in the event of mail, and also they need to jaywalk. It seems to be causing stress with some of them. So I'm sure whatever we can do to help in any way would be at least a start. Thank you.
Councillor Barnwell.
Just further to Councillor Keith's comments, Mr. Cairns, there used to be cobblestone where the walkway was. We won't call it a sidewalk, we'll call it a walkway. Is there to be some sort of smoother resurfacing done there before winter sets in?
Through your worship, we had not planned on it. The cobblestone is in existence there as a hardscape boulevard, not dissimilar to what you'd see downtown actually in certain circumstances. So adjacent to the roadway, then the boulevard is hardscape with cobblestone for much of that area.
I was thinking about the parts of it where it was removed to install the retaining wall. Will they be replaced, or will it be in some way repaired? Or
sorry, I was thinking further down. I'll defer that part of that question to Mr. Bonazza.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So they'll be reinstating with asphalt there.
Councillor McDonald and then Councillor Valesky.
Thank you, Worship. I guess this would be for Mr. Thompson. Just wonder if, or Mr. Kearns, just wondering if there was a status on the town dog washrooms, and I know you're trying to source out some components for the washrooms at the town dock, how that was coming along.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the washrooms at town dock are very dated. Cabinetry, as well as throughout at early part of the season, one of the women's toilets actually was broken, and it is obsolete. The issue with the situation is that to repair it, is going to entail concrete breaking to install a toilet that could work with the system there. So those repairs did not take place this year because it would have shut down the washrooms for an extended period of time while they took place. So it was substandard this year, especially the women's side of those washrooms. Staff's intent is to have a design done and costing for budget deliberations for the 2025 season. If council sees fit and that it would be appropriate, we would be attempting to have a fairly significant overhaul of those washrooms happen before the 2025 season. That will be included in the 2025 budget.
Great, thank you. And I guess this could be for Mr. Bonazza, the status of the Seguin Bridge repairs. How are things going along there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So everything's going well. We hit a couple bumps that we found some conduit in the sidewalk we weren't expecting. We're on drawings. We addressed them, but everything's going well. Everything's going on schedule. Right now they're on the right side heading into town. They've almost completed everything on that side. They're just pouring and letting the concrete cure at this time, and then they'll be switching over to the other side shortly. So doing good, doing well and on schedule.
Councilor Blaski?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is, I guess, for Mr. Kearns. I've noticed we're starting to get some electric vehicles down now. And I'm just wondering how they're working out. I know you're extremely busy, but I'm just wondering if you could maybe put together something for council to demonstrate how good they're working for us or not, whatever, you know, are they what they're doing? Are they saving any money, or we're cleaning the environment up? I know. And how good are they?
Through your worship, we can certainly do that. Maybe a very short time frame. We may want to extend that out a little bit to give us a bigger data set to analyze. And just on that note, I think you'll notice at the BOCC, there's been a lot of work. This is Lakeland's work in partnership with the town. So there's 4 charging stations at the BOCC, almost completed, and they've started down at the Stocky Center with the 4 installations down there. So the anticipation from Lakeland is that those will be operational. The hope is they will be operational by the end of September. So along that line, we have been supporting the electrification, and I know we'll be in contact with Chief Thompson, who also has one. So we can certainly get back to council on that.
Yes, thank you. I've seen Chief Thompson's vehicle. Actually, I got to see it before he did, and by accident. But anyway, yes. So I just want another doing it. So.
We're good? Okay. Correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor McGarvey. The first item of correspondence is from Jen Norton on behalf of Parry Sound High School in appreciation for the donation of funds towards their food program. The next item is from Linda West with concerns about potential demolition of Wabano Road Bridge. Of course, that item was on the last council agenda with numerous items of correspondence, and this item just followed. Ms. West has expressed concerns also in the past, so those concerns were part of the package in the last agenda. And the third item is the resolution from the municipality of Whitestone, which you referred to, Mayor McGarvey. So I will just point out that the resolution of Whitestone requests that the Near North District School Board halt their plan to put the kindergarten to grade 6 elementary students into the Parry Sound High School, and that the board revise their elementary school plans so the K-6 students already enrolled in McDougall Public School can remain, and any students enrolled from Nobel Public School integrated into McDougall Public School, and that essentially if operating this McDougall Public School on the long term is not a viable solution due to repairs that are required, that the board immediately begin conversations with the Ministry of Education to seek capital improvement funding or to fund the build for a brand new McDougall Public School on the same property. So that, as you mentioned, will be a resolution of support from the town of Parry Sound later on the agenda.
Thank you. Next, we come to deputations, and tonight we have Mr. Bill Mardaby from the Gardens of Parry Sound Seniors Apartments Development present to make a deputation to us. Welcome. I just press the button on the front and you're good.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm Bill Mardaby with the Gardens of Parry Sound, the retirement residence on College Drive at the north end of town. We started here in 2013. We purchased the land from the town of Parry Sound, and then we designed and built phase 1 with 70 retirement suites. And then by 2019, we added 35 suites. So now we have 105 suites, which is operating well. With the marketing that's coming in, we witnessed an increased demand for seniors apartments in Parry Sound. And these seniors, they're looking for security and services, but want to keep their independent lifestyle. So it's like a middle step between home ownership and the retirement home. So we're looking at expanding and doing these apartments, and our concept is to do 2 buildings, sort of 30 to 40 units each. And one would be a little bit lighter, the other is more associated with care. We do have room for 1 building on our site, which we rezoned, I guess, some 7-8 years ago. But to do the second building, we talked to the town about acquiring there's a right-of-way adjacent to our property. And I believe it's about 2 acres in size, but the thing of only about a third of his plateau land. The rest of it sort of goes down pretty severely, but we think it could be workable. And for this, we sent our letter into council as a request on September the 6th, which I believe is circulated. Did last week, we had a virtual call with town staff just to discuss some of the pragmatics, how it would work. So it was planning and development, economic development. We've also had preliminary discussions with our neighbor, Canadore College. So they have a shortage of student accommodation. And we went over there again today and just tried to figure out exactly what they need. Short answer is they don't know, but they need something. So we'd be willing to work with them to try to incorporate some student housing for them, as they'd be across the street to me. So we want to continue that dialogue. So to move this process forward, of course, we need the access and ownership of the right-of-way land for the development. So that's our story, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I guess my first question would be to staff. Is there anything more that Mr. Mardaby needs to do or whatever to bring it to council with regard to the purchase of property?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, between myself and Jeremy, and maybe Mr. Kearns will try to answer that question. Our disposal bylaw would require a specific resolution passed by council if there was going to be a direct sale. We did talk to Mr. Mardaby about that when we had our meeting with him. We talked to him about some conditions that would be surrounding that if we were to move a recommendation like that forward to council. But that would be something that would be required. This particular property, and Mr. Randall, correct me if I'm wrong here, please, Jeremy, was declared surplus previously. I think it was around 2017. That was moving through a process that we were intending to put it up for RFP for highest and best use at that time. As everyone recalls, in late 2019, pandemic hit. And quite frankly, as a priority, it completely fell off the table at that time, and it has never been resurrected. So I believe Mr. Rand has identified for me that we would need to restart some of that process to be able to move forward in this manner. And additionally, something specifically would have to come to council if we were going to be doing it as a direct sale.
Okay, so I guess the question then is that something that the developer needs to push and bring that through a correspondence? Or is that something we would provide direction to?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe I would suggest that Mr. Martimet's letter that was circulated by the clerk today would be that request.
Okay.
And if council would so desire staff to work to those ends, direction from council to move through that process would provide us with what we needed to bring something back to council for your consideration.
Right. So is there an appetite for council members to move that direction? Councilor Borneman?
Make that motion.
Okay, and then I've got Councilor Keith and Councilor Ashford both have their hands up, so pick one. So questions on the direction? Councilor Ashford.
I just wanted to comment in favor of this as well, that when I was first elected to council, this is one of the properties I brought to staff from my eye that should be sold and put in the hands of someone who's going to build housing. And what greater use for housing in our community than senior housing? So I don't know all the angles and I don't know all the situations, but from the eye of a layperson, this is something that I've been suggesting for the last couple of years. Be put in the hands of somebody who could build a house, because we need housing and we need senior housing almost as much as anything else. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor McCann.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for coming this evening. It sounds exciting, and certainly we need the housing. You had mentioned the possibility of working with Canadore and making accommodation for its students. Would this be like a separate dormitory for the students, or would it be sort of intermingled in the gardens unit as well? I wonder if that's a bit of a conflict in terms of the living style arrangement that you're trying to sell to seniors.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the short answer is I don't know. We talked to Canadore. They have a dormitory in their campus in North Bay, and they're going to look at that, see what they have. They're going to survey their programs. They're looking at trying to identify what the future programs are. This is a long-term prospect, and it's something that's going to run for 20 years. So they're trying to see what their programming is and what their needs are. One thing that came out of the conversation is the positive interaction between seniors and, in this case, students. That there'd be good interaction with them. There would be intermingling in the building, and we see that as a good thing.
I was thinking of wild parties late at night. But that's good. Thank you very much.
Got to watch those seniors, I'll tell you. Okay, are there any other questions for Mr. Martin? Yeah, Councilor McDonald.
Through your worship, I don't know if this has any effect or not. Would it affect at all the forest school that's there?
Sorry,
the Parry Sound Forest School, the property that they use?
I don't believe so. Yeah, okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Thank you.
All in favor of the direction? That's carried, none opposed. Okay. Is there anything you want to add? So I think we've got the wheel moving tonight. So I want to thank you for your presentation. Is there anything else you wanted to add there, Bill? Or? Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Next are reports. I'll start with Councilor Keith.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff, and the public. First of all, 3 of my activities I had the pleasure of doing in full rain gear for different days. I attended the salt dock. There was what I call a snowplow rally, so to speak, a relay in which some of the municipalities surrounding Parry Sound where the operators were able to show their finesse and how well they can manage a snowplow. And certainly I was one of the judges, and I do have to say, when the public or myself sees how well they can handle the snowplow and the wing, it really is amazing to see. And so that was really great. I believe the first prize went to the operator of McKellar this year. So that was really nice to see, and all in the rain. So, and we weren't even ducks. Then the next day I attended the fly-in at the airport. Again, it was rain. And so the numbers that were there were kind of slim, but I would say between that, and I also went to the McKellar Fall Fair that day, and again, it was raining, so my rainwear was well used. I have to say, where they may not have had as many people attend these events as in the past, I would think because it was raining, a lot of people were there where the food was. So I think there was probably a benefit, because I saw a lot of people eating that I think would have been walking around if it had been nicer weather. So there's always some good out of these things. I also attended the Simcoe Awareness Suicide presentation, where there was a bench that is right on the fitness trail, actually across from the water plant, the Tony Agnello water plant. And it's the presentation and the bench there, I think, was again an opportunity for us to be able to more freely talk about suicide rather than seeing it as a taboo subject. So I attended. I also attended the the grand opening of the Parry Sound Friendship Center. And I also went inside and had a good examination, a look of all the floors. It certainly has changed from the building that it had been before, certainly quite inviting. And I just thought it was very open to whether one was Indigenous or non-Indigenous to attend that center. So I wish them well in the programming they have available now. And certainly the look inside is really, like I said, inviting and quite beautiful. I also, in the evening, and I attended the Snowbird Lifestyle presentation at the Stocky Center. And I have to say, it was the first time I had heard the lay singers and dancers, the next generation, and that was quite wonderful, besides John McDermott and John Flynn with his comedy. And while I was sitting there, I was thinking again, sometimes I feel that maybe we don't always maybe appreciate or value the Stocky Center as much as we have in this community, because when I saw so many people in the building and the entertainment there, I thought we're really lucky for a population of 7,000 to have such a center here. So I think, you know, we should always keep that in mind. Yesterday, I also attended the Waterfront Advisory Committee, and I'm sure Councillor McCann will be reporting on it even more. In there was mention, as I've mentioned previously, about the number of surveys that were conducted on the with the hybrid system on the computer was over 380, and myself was 220 on a one-to-one basis. And certainly there was a subgroup determining how the information session, which is on October 7th, will be conducted. And there'll be a variety of presenters that day, or actually evening, between 6 and 9 p.m. It is more of an opportunity to hear the presentations. However, there will be a couple of exercises that will enable anybody who attends to put comments in, whether it be with QR code was what we were looking at, or on paper. So I'm hoping that people will come out to that. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Ashford.
Thank you, Mayor. Very quiet couple of weeks for me. Main thing is we had West Parry Sound pool committee meeting, and it was the shortest meeting so far since I've been on the committee. And I took that as good news, and things are kind of moving around. And we should be looking at the billing starting to pop up in front of us anytime. Thank you.
Excuse me, I should also say that I also attended the Friendship Center picnic over at Wasauksing, and I thought that was a really lovely opportunity for us to exchange ideas with staff from Wasauksing and also with staff, of course, from Parry Sound. And we were gifted, anybody that attended and those that didn't got their gifts tonight from Wasauksing, which included maple syrup. So I see maple syrup next door here with Councillor Ashford. And there was some sweetgrass and some other sweetgrass items that really can be appreciated. So I really appreciated coming to that, and I thank you once again.
You were finished, Councillor Ashford? Okay, Councillor Boleski?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's been a very quiet couple of weeks for me as well. On Monday, September the 9th, I attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting at their offices, and it's basically business as usual, and I'll leave it up to Councillor McDonald to add any more to it than I have.
Okay.
And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor McCann?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff, and public. Wednesday morning last week, September the 4th, I attended the Parry Sound Public Library monthly board meeting. I say monthly, quite use that term quite loosely in that we haven't really met throughout the summer. So we had a number of housekeeping matters to take care of, the consent agenda, reviewing and approving treasurer's reports for May, June, and July. A great deal of discussion on whether or not we can afford, or whether it's even possible to have an elevator or lift installed in the building. The board has approved some money for an architect study and review to tell us what, if anything, can be done to accommodate such an installation. The report would open the door to potential grant money for the work of installing that lift. So that's kind of way in the future, but getting this report done now is most important. Our chair, Tom Lundy, brought forth a motion to shorten the length of the term of a chair from 2 to 1 year intervals. That would give future boards an opportunity to deal with sitting chairs who are not working up to standard or par. We voted to reduce the length, but I do want to make it clear that we're very, very happy as a board with Mr. Lundy and his work, his dedication, and his commitment. We couldn't do it without him. And I jokingly remarked to him that he's not getting out of it that easy. So we also looked at some foundational policies which involved amending our vision and our mission statements. Lots of summer programs and partnerships this year as well. The staff did very, very well with partnering with TD and the TD Summer Reading Club. They had weekly Lego clubs, babysitting course, home alone course, kids yoga, science north, and weekly tech days. Partnering with the Festival of the Sound, with the Downtown Business Association, Carling Township Municipality, McDougall, and even agreements with Ontario Parks, where we had day use permits, and from the museum on Tower Hill, a couple of museum passes. These were all shared with our patrons of the library, and they were in constant use throughout the summer. So thank you to all our partners and to our staff for doing such a great job. Then, as Councillor Keith mentioned, yesterday afternoon here in Council Chambers, the Waterfront Advisory Committee meeting met. It was a great deal of conversation, of course, centered on the special event, which Councillor Keith spoke of, coming up on October 7th as we kick off the waterfront master plan. And it is an opportunity for the public to attend free of charge at the Charles W. Stockey Center from 6 till 9 that evening. We have some special speakers coming in who will be interesting to listen to, and there are some opportunities to participate. I want to thank Councillor Keith for her work in leading the way and getting out there on the streets and collecting feedback from people as to what they'd like to see on the waterfront. And as I reported to council a couple of weeks ago, we're very happy to see that the Pearl Mist was able to dock at the town dock, and very excited that the Parry Sound is on their schedule for next year. Also want to thank Mike Kearns and April McNamara for coming to our meeting yesterday. They talked about lines of communication between their departments and our committee when it comes to dealing with maintenance issues, who to go to, who to talk to, and who does what. So thank you for coming to that meeting yesterday and speaking with us. And that is my report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Worship. Good evening, everyone. I'll keep this quick as well. Those of you who maybe don't know Councillor Keith as well as I do would really give her extra commendation for being out in that cold, wet weather on September 7th. Bonnie prefers more hot, humid weather, to say the least. The fly-in did happen. I thank the staff at the airport for the work they put into that. It was most unfortunate that, you know, the worst day in several months occurred then, especially in view of the weather before and since. I did have a Board of Governance meeting at Belvedere Heights on September 11th, and that's my report for this evening.
All right, thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Your Worship. On September the 4th, I attended the DBA meeting. There was a presentation regarding downtown parking and future possibilities for more lit laneways, such as Jukes Lane, and a better flow for traffic and pedestrians. DBA is also excited at the prospect of taking over beautification of the town dock when Town of Parry Sound takes that over next year. September 13th, attended the Friendship Picnic at Wissahickon Gathering Center, as Councillor Keith mentioned. As well attended by both staff from Parry Sound, council, and staff from Wissahickon, Mayor McGarvey, CEO Harris, Councillor Keith. They provided a great luncheon, and as mentioned, there's maple syrup and sweetgrass products were greatly appreciated. That's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you. Council staff and public, September 4th, I attended a West Parry Sound Economic Development Collaborative meeting, which was held at the Township Archipelago's office. Karen Jones presented a possible proposal for the collaborative to move forward. And so we're kind of taking that back and thinking about it right now. September 5th, I attended the Carling Township Municipal Office. September 10th, I attended a ceremony which Councillor Keith mentioned on top of the water treatment plant to recognize World Suicide Prevention Day. Simcoe County Council for Suicide Prevention led the program, and they donated a bench which is located in the parkette on top of the water treatment plant. There were representatives from our fire department, the OPP, land ambulance, social services, and families. There were many heartfelt stories and reflections on, and I would like to thank all of those who organized and participated in the event, and thank you for the bench and someplace for people to reflect. September 11th, I attended the pool committee meeting, and there is an item on the agenda tonight with regard to charging stations for electric vehicles, which was discussed at the meeting. September 12th was the Parry Sound District Social Services Board meeting, and council should have received the update that I forwarded on with regard to the DSAB's activities. September 13th, as was mentioned, was the friendship picnic with the town in Wissahickon. I'd really like to thank the organizers on Wissahickon that put the lunch together, and it was very well done, and the gifts, which were very appreciative. And it was Councillor Keith and Councillor McDonald, and CAO Harris was here, along with our clerk, Ms. Johnson, and a number of staff which attended as well. And it was a really good lunch, but it was a good opportunity to be able to sit and have a conversation. I had a great conversation with some of their council members and staff, and yeah, just, you know, they're facing challenges as well. We as well, and it was good that we shared that information. So it's a great opportunity to have a conversation. September 14th, I visited the open house at the fire hall, which was a beautiful day. And their barbecue, great crowd, and maybe in the future some of those kids might be potential firefighters. So one never knows, but I know they were having a great time. And I'd like to thank all those that organized and volunteered to host the event. They even pulled some people out of retirement to work as well, which was really good. So Chief Thompson, please relay that. And something that I learned too is right now from Chief Thompson was that we are at full complement of volunteers, which is something that is really good for this community and appreciated. So, and after they almost got, I think, the event packed up, they had a call and they had to go out. So it was after the event though. September 16th from 10 to 1 p.m., 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., I attended a Zoom meeting for the Municipal Employees Pension Committee. Then at September 16th at 5:30, I attended the Chamber of Commerce Business Awards, which was a great night aboard the Island Queen. I'd like to thank Councillor McDonald, who is the executive director for the Chamber, and his staff for putting on the event. Everybody had a great time, and the music was absolutely fantastic. A young couple, and yeah, certainly great to you know, certainly appreciate and acknowledge the businesses that are working within our community to provide service to the community, which was great. September 17th at 9 a.m. I attended the Ontario Small Urban Municipalities meeting. Minister Downey, or the Attorney General, was on hand, and we spent about 40 minutes with him. A great discussion around the landlord-tenant board and how to speed up the issues that are there, and you know, sort of how they're monitoring and you know, assessing what's going on right now. And I believe they are trying to get more adjudicators to the table so that this can be processed a lot quicker. So great discussion, and yeah, that's my report. So we will back to the agenda. This is item 7.1. It comes from the closed meeting, moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound is hereby authorized and direct staff to submit a request for an inquiry for a breach of code of conduct for members of council of the Township of Carling to the Integrity Commissioner for the Township of Carling related to conduct of members of council at the Township of Carling meeting of council held July 12th, 2024. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor McCann. The council adopt a facade improvement guidelines document attached to Schedule A. Mr. Rand, and Ms. Morrison too. Okay, the whole team, or part of the team. I found the report very interesting and I thought it was very well done. So I'll start with that and you can explain what it's all about.
Thank you, Your Worship. Bear with me while I attempt to bring this up. We do have our consultant from Cool Earth Architects with us as well. And I think the idea here tonight is I'll introduce the main portion of the document, and Jeff will talk to some of the design sketches that his firm created. So we're very excited to present the overview of the facade improvement program document. During the latest update of the facade grants, as council knows, staff did see some need for improvement for communication with respect to the program requirements. So with council's support, we were able to produce this document, which implements the program requirements as well as highlights some best practices. And it puts it all into one document, which would be great for the facilitation and administration of the facade improvement program. So again, we would like to note that Cool Earth Architects helped us with this project. They've been a wonderful partner. And this document was also created in consultation with the Facade Improvement Committee, who provided input throughout the process as well. As many of you may not know, the photographs throughout the document were taken by our very own Tom Morrissey, and he was very supportive and flexible providing these images. So we're very thankful for that, and just wanted to note that it was a good group effort and with a lot of participants. So this, in general, this document again is provided to provide a comprehensive detail about the facade improvement program, as well as provide those real life examples, which we're calling inspiration sketches. So it also suggests a framework for facade design and restoration in the town of Parry Sound as well. So we've divided the document into three main sections, sort of an overview of the facade improvement grant program, ideas for consideration, as well as the inspiration sketches. So the ideas for consideration, this is a whole section of the document that's divided into 5 subsections. And we wanted to include this section as it would outline more information about facades in general, because we did see this as an opportunity for an education piece for members of the public and applicants as well about facades, sort of beyond just the program requirements that could be implemented through planning and implementation of facade improvements. And I'm just going to go through them very quickly, high level. The first section is incentives. And here we outline a number of reasons and explanations of why one would want to improve their facades. So these reasons would range from adding value to their business, to safety and overall community impacts. Next, we have durability, maintenance, and materials. When looking at materials for a facade, we wanted to emphasize that sometimes less is more. A lot of our buildings downtown have a brick facade that's been covered up over time. We know that too much detail can sometimes detract from the legibility, and sometimes we need to let those buildings breathe and showcase how their original design. We also wanted people to consider materials that not just to meet the recommendations of the community improvement plan facade guidelines, but also to ensure that the materials being used are long-lasting and durable. We remind the reader in the document as well that the improvements for buildings are generally on the outside. They are the public realm and do require a higher quality material due to the increased traffic. So sticking up something that you might find at Home Depot is probably not going to hold up. Related to materials are environmental considerations, and these include things about the life cycle of the material being used. And we also wanted to link the idea that the bay as a precious resource is impacted by activities nearby. So chemical treatments of materials as well as microplastics and other composite materials can end up in the bay. So we've outlined some alternative materials and techniques for consideration as well. The next section is accessibility. And we wanted to emphasize that it's not just about the path of travel, but also visibility, functionality, and safety as well. And the last subsection here has to do with signage and lighting. And this section highlights impacts that lighting and signage can make on facades, and also emphasizes that these improvements do not have to be expensive or complicated. So again, the document does contain information to educate the public about facades. It provides some nomenclature, approachability to facade maintenance and improvements, and outlines some various elements in detail. We've also, one thing that Jeff's done really well is he's provided some information on how you could divide up facade elements in terms of a business plan and phase your improvements over time. And this would enable applicants to apply for multiple grants over time so that that cost can be spread out. So I'm now going to pass the microphone over to Jeff, and he's going to go through the inspiration examples within the guidelines. And these were done on real buildings in the town of Parry Sound.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me. So sorry, I couldn't be there in person. This section is the inspiration sketches, so it was really fun to take images and be able to use the guide that we developed and show how it could be executed. So obviously the Strand Theater here, we said, what if that big wall was more of an art piece, and how could we bring art? And so we updated the materials, we added better exterior lighting that could illuminate the mural. We did the mural, like there's some great murals in Parry Sound, to St. Marie and elsewhere. Murals are a great opportunity. And we also wanted to talk about materials that would be durable on the ground plane. So using steel cladding in contact with the ground that could really last over 5 years, because when you're giving grants too, you really want to see that investment not just go in 2 years with elements. So how can we, and the ground plane of urban environments is intense with salt, traffic, injuries, impacts. And so we thought we could brighten it up and create a bulletin board for artwork here. So next slide. In this one, we wanted to showcase some simple materials, sort of a less is more approach, because any facade is also a window onto the store. So we thought, replacing the storefront glazing of these stores, just making floor to ceiling glazing, but also improving that glazing with high performance windows. Maybe if it's facing south, you get coatings so that you're not baking in the sun. That makes a better view for your product. And then trying to touch on these different layers that your eye sees, because what is a streetscape? Well, to a driver, a pedestrian, or someone in the distance, it's all different scales. So here we have signage, a main bar of signage for people at a distance. We have decals on the windows, and then we have some more blade signs as well for people that are walking obliquely down a sidewalk. So I liked what Jeremy said about giving people a language they could use, or a sort of cheat sheet that they could then say, I like this, I like that, I like that. Anywho, next slide. This one we thought would be a good opportunity to show mineral stain. Now, there's a lot of great brick buildings. They've been covered up. So part of this was, let's see, give some people some tools for maybe restoring that brick. And one of the really exciting ones is mineral stain, which is actually, I don't want to say ancient, but it's 150 plus year old technology that it goes into masonry services. It's not like a paint. And you can really make a facade even colored if it's got a lot of discolored or mismatched brick. So we wanted to say, you could make a nice clean white brick, replace the windows, replace the fire exits. And then another thing we tried to do is break up the streetscape with vertical elements so that you could accentuate little storefronts and creating more of a neat environment. So in this building, there's some really cool glass storefronts, and we thought, let's make each storefront feel like a separate business, or even if it's not a business, you can have an art or a sign, something for the city there. So I think we can go on. This one, we thought, there's probably an old building hiding, because you can see the cornice detail. We couldn't find any historic images, but we saw there's probably an old building hiding under this vinyl siding. So let's this is a design exercise, so let's assume it's there. What would it look like? The other thing we tried to do is bring some of that history with a it's sort of a traditional detailing, but a cornice and then signs and break it up into multiple buildings. And a lot of the historic imagery we found downtown, there was actually wood shakes and shingles, so sort of a neat aesthetic to bring back. And A-frame signs, blade signs, backlit letters, keeping it simple. And again, the window decals, the street signs, and the upper facade. So I think we can go to the next one. This one we actually found the historic image of, and you can see they had floored, oh, you can't see, but in the guide you could see that they have floor to ceiling glass. You know, we didn't feel confident going with that because who knows what the alterations were here, but what we did do was there was this weathered metal, deeply corrugated siding, and so we replaced it. We tried to restore an existing historic pediment, which we saw in the image, and then and all the colors it's pretty cool. The Town of Parry Sound got pair of paints to create a sample of color swatches based on Group of 7 paintings. So each of these inspiration sketches uses one of those color schemes to sort of tell the story. So we said, let's include a mural. It could be a great place for more art. Let's include a historic sign on the building. People like the history. It connects them to the place. So a historic sign is always a good investment in, creating a narrative around your downtown. We replaced the windows and, it's not a facade, but we said, let's put a air source heat pump in so we don't have those window AC units hanging off. And again, just following information on the glass, street signs, and then an upper building, and trying to restore some of that history. And this one, James Street, this was the old post office from 1897, so we were restoring the signage which was removed, and we're using the mineral stain to try to even out any of the damage. It looks like you can see on this before picture it's peeling, right? Well, mineral stain would not peel like that because it's impregnated, but they have opaque stains that you can actually cover all that and it'll look really uniform. And we also got some streetscape benches. Now, there's a big difference between a commercial grade streetscape bench and a Home Depot backyard bench, which are great value, but streetscape environment's intense, so we wanted to highlight that. And then, again, restoring. We're not historic architects. We're not trying to say it needs to look classical. And I think we tried to do a selection of different styles to give people inspiration, but just trying to connect Parry Sound to the story of Parry Sound. So. And some neat materials like Cree-Zone is a waterproof MDF that stays flat. It can be printed on, painted on. So we're trying to talk to people about that. This one we're showing weathered wood siding as a vertical element, which is a alternative to pressure treated. It's baked in a high humidity sort of kiln for a few weeks and then cooled, so it's no treatment, and it really grays much more evenly. And then that reminds us of the bay and the driftwood and the stumps we see washed on the shores. And then we were showing fiber cement, which is also pretty durable material, doesn't age, and it's good for the streetscape environment. And we used a color scheme from the Group of 7, and we just tried to create simple. We used our own rules basically. We created the guide and then used it on the buildings that Tom Morsey had taken pictures of. So we can keep going. And this one, the building's in pretty good condition, but as a pedestrian, as you walk by, there's a lot of, it's not really a place in the city. It's right downtown, but so we thought, wow, there's a great opportunity for a triptych right along this wall, a 3-panel mural along the, I don't remember the street name, but along that street. And then how can we add more murals on the glass? We went a bit more modern here and said, let's do a weathered wood screen that sort of ties it across. So there's some great new buildings being built around and some modern looks. So let's do something there. Adding more benches for people to sit. Benches help people that have physical disabilities that can't travel as easily, and just help people gather and stay in one place easier. And yeah, I mean, thinking of gardening, seasonal gardening is great, seasonal pots and planters, but how can they be maintained? So a xeriscape is a really dry landscape, and it could be there all year and look great. So just trying to really give people blue sky ideas, but also rooted in the place and in the ideas guide we came up with.
So just to wrap up, so we'd sincerely like to thank Jeff and his team. Obviously, a lot of expertise that's come through in this document. It's come together quite nicely. It was on budget as well, which we're very happy with. The end product is something that's unique to Parry Sound. It's a made in Parry Sound document that didn't follow what other municipalities are doing necessarily. But it's something that I think council should be proud of. It will be a wonderful tool for staff to use and help facilitate the facade improvement program. So Megan as well, a big thank you. Someone who was instrumental in keeping us on track and the communication flowing. So yeah, I just thank you to council for making this this work, and Jeff, Megan and I are all here for any questions you may have.
Okay. Well, thank you for putting it together. I thought some of the concepts were really neat. I guess my hope would be that there would be some buy-in at some point that this could actually happen. So, Councillor Borneman.
Buy-in is what I want to speak about. It's kind of come to my attention that the DBA hasn't been involved in this process, nor have they reviewed this document. And I think it might be wise of us to postpone this to allow the board to have opportunity to review this and you know, make any suggestions that they feel pertinent to you know, be included in the document. I agree, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a pretty nice package, but I'm not a property owner in the downtown who may or may not wish to be involved with this in future.
Yeah. Before we go to that, I'd like to hear some more from council. So, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Your Worship. A lot of the concepts are great. There's a few issues I could potentially see where, you know, several businesses don't own the building, or they lease off a common landlord. Would there be a goal to try and keep to work with the town to create a certain theme, like throughout the downtown area? I'm seeing this group of 7 color palette and whatnot, but murals and stuff like that. So are they limited to having to go that route? If a business wanted to improve their facade, is that kind of the route that we're going, or would they have a little bit more creative freedom on that? And
through your worship to Councillor McDonald. So I guess 2 questions there. The one question has to do with leases and landlords. So leases are eligible for facade improvement grant funding, provided they do get permission, obviously, from the property owner. With respect to, you had indicated the group of 7 color palette. So that is something is highly recommended through the community improvement plan. There was also the nautical theme, natural theme, using natural elements and those types of things. So ultimately, at the end of the day, staff will take in applications, and we work with applicants to ensure that their proposal contains enough information for the committee to make a decision. And the committee, obviously, you know, they have a limited budget, and they do have to prioritize some applications over others if more money is applied for than what's available. So they could take the stance that, you know, if one proposal meets all of the guidelines and utilizes the color palette and the themes and that sort of thing, it may take precedent over another. But the whole point of the facade improvement program is to provide a carrot to create a cohesive design within the downtown core.
Thank you.
Counselor Ashford, then Counselor Keith.
I just wanted to commend staff on doing what I would say would be impossible. In my thinking and comments, I've kind of said, I would like the downtown to look magical. Or I would like people to fall in love when they come in the downtown. And the only thing that I can kind of contribute to that is string lighting is something that would benefit the community. But here you've been able to quantify magic in a way that makes the downtown look amazing. I heard a couple of the comments. I wasn't really thinking about it, but these are all examples, I think, as opposed to requirements. So I think it certainly inspires me to imagine further, and hopefully it would inspire the community to imagine further. And I think that as a community, as a town and a council, we're offering a carrot to try to make the experience in coming into Parry Sound a wonderful thing, or a more wonderful thing than it already is. But we're already blessed with business owners that are taking advantage of this program. And I think all of us look at Legends as an example that when we come down, we're not fighting with people to do something we want. We're providing this opportunity for people, and you can see the transformation that Legends underwent with our program in order to make that part of town a much more magical place for all of us to be. So I can't thank you guys enough, and I think it's hard to find something that I could add to improve. So thank you guys so much for all this.
Okay, Counselor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question has to do with, in reading the particulars, is it possible, if an applicant is approved for the program, although they have 18 months to complete whatever that task is it possible, say, within 12 months, that even though the job isn't completed for the 18 months, but after 12 months, that they can actually apply again to the facade program, because it indicates up to 25,000 per year? Is that a possibility?
Through you, Your Worship, Councillor Keith, that's a great question. I don't think we've come across that to date. I believe we would try to facilitate that if possible. It may affect funding because we do get an approved budget each year, so it may be something that we'd have to talk to. We may have to come back to council and get an extension to that agreement, but if there was a way to work through it, we could. The other option is for the applicant to withdraw their current application and apply in the next year. But we do have a reserve fund, so I do believe, unless there's some red flags over at the senior leadership team table, we could probably work something out through an amending agreement with the applicant.
Well, I would kind of hope so, because the way it's written, it's up to 18 months to complete. And each year you've got a year, every year, 25,000 is the applicant. So I would hope that can be at least examined. The other thing is more of a comment, and it does pertain indirectly to what Councillor Borneman has made mention of a moment ago, because I've had a business owner who's interested, downtown business owner, interested in the facade program, but yes, concerned about really the logistics of the program, how it's run, and wanted input. So I think that we are asking people to want to do something, or encouraging them to want to do something if they own their business, but we definitely do need buy-in, because it seems to have kind of slipped.
Councilor McCann.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well done indeed. I like the color palette idea and the themes and such that were used. I think it was mentioned that similar studies, reports have been done for other localities. Am I correct? I think at the beginning someone mentioned that they've been done for other cities.
Through your worship, that is correct. I think when we brought this forward in April, I believe, maybe March, we did provide a couple of examples of that. On that point, Stemsky, Kelly and Associates, they produce, I would say, the vast majority of these types of documents. So we didn't use their sort of template here. We sort of recreated the wheel, so to speak, but maintained the spirit in that we would sort of bring to life the requirements that we have through the CIP, which is a very textual document.
Sure.
And there's pieces sort of, when we were administering the program, we were sort of sending applicants, here's a link to the CIP, here's a link to this, here's a link to that, and this document brings it all together.
Yeah. So in other areas, has there been buy-in with this kind of thing? Do we have history in this area?
Through your worship, when I was at the town of Gravenhurst, at the time they were creating a brand new community improvement program. Our community improvement program here at the town of Parry Sound is a lot older. So I think these demonstration sketches are something you typically see for newer community improvement plans. Just as they're being created, these are automatically something that's created with the consultant doing the CIP. So, Parry Sound was probably at the forefront and had an earlier CIP, and these concepts probably weren't something that was a standard package. So we're bringing it forward today and in a different kind of unique way.
Thanks very much.
I appreciate what's been done because I've been through a number of communities in Ontario and other places as well. And you can tell when someone's done a plan like this, you can see the themes, in the downtown and other areas and that sort of thing, which really enhance, I think, that warm sort of friendly feeling that you want to have and that positive atmosphere. So good job. If there's nothing else to discuss, we have a mover and seconder to postpone this to, let's say, October the 15th, which is our council meeting in October. That gives time for consultation with the DBA downtown and that sort of thing. Councilor Barnum?
Councillor McDonald earlier informed me that the DBA's meeting is October 9th, so I don't know if 6 days is enough to.
But they can have it beforehand and discuss it on the 9th.
Right, I'm just saying, so they discuss it on the 9th. I'm not sure that whatever is brought forward or not from that meeting gets incorporated by the time we get back here on the 15th.
Well, we'll bring it back in November, yeah.
So through your worship, my apologies. Just my initial thoughts were, I think that resolution is fine, but as I'm thinking about it, I would just, I guess, throw some caution out there that this design guideline document is really about the CIP, and it's sort of separate from the DBA programs, and we wouldn't want it to, make any to blur any lines between the DBA's programs like the patio policy and the beautification programs. We're certainly open to having them take a look at it, but we would caution that their suggestions be sort of independent of their programs, so that these programs are meant to function independently of each other. And I would note too that we are doing an uptake this fall that we're hoping to use this to release the guideline. We can release it in draft form to applicants as well. So I don't think it will have an impact that way, but we would just caution if the DBA is making comments that they sort of, this document is to stand alone as part of the community improvement program and not, it's not related to DBA programs.
No, I think what I was thinking of is that we put it out for comment. That's why I suggested October the 15th. We put it out for comment. We're receiving comments back. Nobody's changing the document until council's seen the comment.
Okay, I'm good with that.
So this is our document. And then that way, at least we're being open about it and allowing people to comment on this moving forward. Councillor McCann, then Councillor Ashford.
So, Mr. Rand, I notice from the examples, these buildings are all within the, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the DBA catchment area. Is the facade program available to any business within the town of Parry Sound?
Through your worship, yes. The facade program is available to all properties within the town of Parry Sound. As noted, there is a limited budget and there are I think when the CIP was originally implemented, it was just for the DB area, then it was expanded. But there is wording in there that explicitly states that the priority is the downtown area. And there are special grants or special considerations for the downtown. For example, if you're outside of that DBA area, commercial mixed use buildings are not eligible. It would just be a commercial building. So the only mixed use ones are the downtown. And that is, again, because it's sort of the main focus and they do get a bit of priority in the CIP, and that's why we sort of highlighted those buildings.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Ashford?
My thinking on it is that there's a difference between a funding program and an incentive program where we don't want this to be considered funding businesses to help put a new sign up at their store. Which, you know, is something that we consider as well, but it is not this particular program is kind of is trying to incentivize doing things in a uniform way or following a certain motif in order to kind of connect our community further. And the reason this kind of came about, if we remember, was because of struggles with when the committee looked at the applications, and frustrations and struggles when the businesses were applying, is not really knowing what they were looking at or applying to, and there kind of being different understandings of that. So the members on the committee and the members that are applying are generally part of the DBA already. And they're already members of that, and different businesses around town. So I just think we just want to be very clear with it that it's an incentive program, and this whole document's meant to kind of clarify a little bit for everybody so that we don't end up at the end of it with kind of like frustrated understandings of things, that this is kind of the clear focus what we're like. That's the way I understand it, as opposed to like being just like a straight funding program, like how best to help businesses who are in need of a grant or a little bit extra cash to help with a signage issue.
So are we postponing it till October 15th? I need a mover and seconder. We're going to Councillor Borneman, Councillor Keith. All in favor? October 15th. Yeah. Thank you. That's carried. Item 921, moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Ashford. The council approved the 2024 second quarter progress report on the town's key performance objectives, KPOs, as set out in Schedule A. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a number of action steps in there that comments have been provided, and Lee will happy to respond to any comments or questions that members of council may have. In terms of the last sheet, the stats, if you like, that are provided in the report, it's up to the end of June, up to the end of the second quarter. And what's interesting to note, for the full year of 2022, the value of building permits issues was 13 million. At the end of 2023, for the full year, it was 20 million in building permits issued, but up to the second quarter of 2024, it's 44 million. So each year there's a lot more activity. The significant building permit that was issued in the first half of 2024 was the new school. But we anticipate issuing the permit for the new recreation center before the end of the year, very, very soon, we're hoping. And that's going to be a significant addition to these numbers. So there's a lot of value going in the ground, which affects trades and employment. Also, there's a lot of work for the various staff departments that are involved in building permit review and inspection. Public Works is involved in this, and there's a number of staff involved. So a lot of activity going on, and significantly more activity volume-wise and value-wise 2024 versus the last couple of years.
Councilor Borman?
I wanted to thank the people who put this together. It's a great refresher course for us and, you know, for members of the public browsing through this, get a pretty good idea, pretty good understanding of what's happening and what's underway. So I thank the staff for putting this together for us.
Any further comments? Councilor Keith?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of comments for Mr. Harris. One is, for example, line 14, which talks about the economic development officer. And in that section, it continues to say, you know, basically when the person is hired, is it possible that the date of the hiring can also be put in there, because it keeps saying April dates, but because we're fairly current, I think that would be helpful.
Through the mayor to Councillor Keith, the next quarter would be the end of September. We'll be reporting. And of course, the new economic development officer is here. He was hired, I think, July 29th. So there'll be different comments for the next quarter for sure.
Right, but all I'm saying is, in one line, it would be great just to show that when the economic development officer was hired, so July, whatever, 2024 position now filled or something, just to kind of clarify things, because we have other comments in August, et cetera, in the form. So that's my one question. Thank you. And my second question is on line 105, under quality of life, which talks about culture, and it certainly talks about the Sir Francis Pigmagabo statue and the orange bench that has been purchased and is going to be set near that statue. And all I'm asking there is, it's on line 105, is will there be a ceremony or a notification on the website, the importance of that bench being there, just as when the statue was placed there, there was a ceremony. I think that's really important. What's the viewpoint, please?
Through the mayor to Councillor Keith, I want to thank Mike Kearns, the Director of Public Works, for bringing this to our attention, that the possibility to acquire the bench with the plaque was an opportunity that we could take advantage of. We haven't exactly planned the September 30th ceremony to recognize the importance of the date, but the bench, I mean, there's an opportunity to celebrate and use the bench as the focal point of the statue. Haven't got any more details at this point, but.
Just for clarification, so am I hearing there's a possibility that something more may be done in recognition of that bench? Is that what I'm hearing?
Through the mayor, I mean, we try to do something every year, yes. And certainly the bench and that spot could be part of some ceremony.
I think we got to make sure we get the bench too. So, yeah. Anything further on the KPOs? All in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Ashford and seconded by Councillor Keith, that upon the request of the West Parry Sound Recreation and Culture Center Board, Council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the site access verification form attached to Schedule A, allowing Lakeland Power to apply to Natural Resources Canada for funding, which will help assist Lakeland Power to install EV chargers on the facility site. Mr. Harris.
For the members of benefit of the members of council and the public, just for clarification, this is there's an opportunity that the board wants to work with Lakeland Power for EV charging stations. The board's supportive, Lakeland Power supportive. But the technicality is that the town of Parry Sound is the owner of the site. We acquired the property, as you'll recall, so that we could issue a taxable receipt as part of the purchase price. And the technicality on the application requires that the owner consent. So it's here as a technicality to get the town's consent to enter into this arrangement.
Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Bolesky and seconded by Councillor Ashford. The council accepts the bid from Sizzle Lift Distribution Incorporated for an aerial boom lift in the amount of $70,684.57, excluding taxes. This being the lowest compliant bid of 5 bids received. Any discussion? Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Bonanza, I'm just wondering, what will happen if we approve this tonight, the 2005 Genie lift? What will happen to that? Will we be putting that up for sale separately? Is it possible there's parts that might be able to be used for the aerial lift if there's an issue? But what's the situation, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in our tender document, we did put a section for trade-in. None of the bidders did come back with they wanted to accept the trade-in. So what we'll look at doing is we'll go through our Gov Deals program and put that online, and we've been very successful. Even Mr. Thompson's equipment as well, we've been very successful as well with getting market value or above. So we'll be putting it on there and getting some bidders on that and selling it off.
Councillor McDonald?
Your worship, just a quick question. What's the life cycle? Is it common 7-year life cycle for these kind of pieces of equipment, or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So once a life cycle on a Genie lift hits over 10 years, there's it's called the non-destructive test. It has to be going through. So it's a expensive test that these Genie lifts have to go to once they hit a certain age. So we look at that 10-year lifespan before they have to go through that test that has to be required every 3 years after that, on top of the regular inspection. So once it gets to that age, and the cargo is people, right? So we'd like to keep everything current and safe as possible.
Good plan. Councillor McCann?
Thank you. Just curious, so, I mean, it says in the report here what the lift is generally used for, to reach high places, cutting branches, maybe getting cats out of the trees, I don't know, but this replacement, does it look similar to what we have now, or is it bigger and newer? Does it go higher? Is it faster, or what?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So basically, the color is changing on it. It is probably the staff really like what we have. We don't need any higher reach. Is a tow behind unit with a self-driving power on it. So that means you can disconnect it from the truck, drive it across the park on it under its own power, and lift up and get what we need done instead of have to driving it in. Advantages to this one, it doesn't come with an auxiliary motor on it because it's newer upgraded lithium batteries that should last us all day. So.
Thank you.
Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Item 942, moved by Councillor Bolesky, seconded by Councillor Asher. The council accept the tender from Adams Brothers Construction Limited for snow removal on town streets during the 2024 fall and winter season and the 2025 winter and spring season, including traffic control and labor costs to clear around infrastructure, including tree pits and hydrants as follows. Tandem dump truck, $98 per hour. Wheeled loader, $108 per hour. Blower and control unit, $108 per hour. And this being the lowest of 3 complete bids received. Any questions, comments? Councillor McCann?
Well, I was just wondering, we go through this every year looking for tenders. Has there ever been any thought or consideration to looking for maybe a 3 or a 5 year, maybe 5 years is too much, but that we might procure a service provider who will give us a break because they've got that security built in for 3 or 5 years. Does that something that works in this area, or is it just undone or just unspoken of?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we certainly can look at a tender with a more year turnaround. So we looked at these tenders are 1 year with 1 year extension, but we can look at a 2 year with an extension as well. They are, shall I say, I guess, very fair with their prices on even with everything that's been going on as well. So.
Well, with the weather changing, you never know what to expect from 1 year to the next either when you're bidding. So, okay, thank you.
Anything further? No? All in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bonanza. Moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Keith, that council hereby approves the application to the NOHFC for a playground revitalization program for the funding amount of $500,000. And further, that council confirms the town's commitment to cover the town's contribution towards the project in the amount of $249,800 from the 2024 capital budget, and that the town will cover any project overruns should they occur. Any discussion? Councillor McCann?
Maybe Ms. McNamara could speak to this. And is this in relation to what you told the Waterfront Committee yesterday with some equipment coming?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. If we can, I can elaborate a touch further. What council has in front of them this evening is in June, July, staff applied for stage 1 of NOHFC funding for this community enhancement revitalization program. Staff were recently advised that stage 1 of the application had been approved. We were successful at the first stage. So we're going for stage 2 now with quotes for the project, and hopefully that will all be approved.
Yeah. Anything further? Councillor McDonald?
Just a quick one for Ms. McNamara. Looking at the designs, they look great. Is it the soft foam padding they have on the ground for these ones? Like they do, like similar to the one they have in Carling, or is it wood chips, or is it sand, or what do they use for these ones?
We're putting the cart ahead of the horse with this one because we're talking about the next item, but I'm happy to answer that question. I'm happy to answer that question on designs. What council is seeing in front of them for the design component of these parks, as recommended by the Accessibility Advisory Committee, staff have procured hard surface fall zones for all playgrounds specified.
Anything further on this one? No? All in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. Item 944, moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Ashford. The council accepts the quotation from CRCS Recreation for the playground revitalization program in the amount of $621,100.45, excluding taxes, through the canoe procurement process. And I know what the canoe procurement process is. So Ms. McNamara, can you explain what this is going to do for the playground?
So recently council approved staff to be able to use a new methodology to assist with our procurement, which enables us to get the best, most competitive pricing available for products. So staff went through that canoe process, and what council has in front of them are submissions for 5 various playgrounds that were designed by CRS Recreation. All the playgrounds that are identified and what you have in front of you in your illustrations are all accessible playgrounds. They are all compliant with the Canadian standards. And they're all designed for children ages 5 to 12. Now, that doesn't explicitly mean that children under the age of 5 can use these equipment. There are these play systems. What that means is children under 5 should be and need to be directly supervised by a parent, adult, or guardian at all times while they're using said equipment.
Councillor Ashford.
With those age recommendations, is there any thought into, has there been any thought into providing different items for kids of different ages? So in the sense that sometimes as a parent, you can go to the park and sit on a bench, and the bigger kids are running about on equipment maybe for younger kids and things like that. I'm thinking specifically with the Wabano Beach Park. It's the busiest one. So if you're a parent, you're always, blocking one kid from falling onto the other kid or whatever when you're there, right? So is there any thought into that or anything into how, because it does look like maybe there's a variety of age grouped type equipment that would maybe be a little more specific than the 5 to 12. I've even seen communities where it says 5 to 7 only, the 8 to 12 only, to kind of separate those groups. But at the same time, like, obviously, there's no police there standing there, generally speaking, checking, right? So you can kind of move around. But is there any thinking or ideas around that?
Thank you, Councillor Ashford. Through you, Mr. Mayor, you hit some really great points there. The reality is what council's seeing in front of them in the design components is there are various play components that all ages and stages can use. For example, if you're looking at the drawings that have been supplied for William Street Park, you're going to see very large standalone objects that are specifically designed for small children to go up and manipulate large objects to see various things move. You will see the illustration provided for Mission Park, where you will have more a ninja park component, more geared towards your older, your preteens, your teen category. Again, what staff made the honest attempt at with this project and this program was to work with CRCS Recreation to ensure that they were aware of the Culture Parks and Recreation Master Plan and the recommendations contained in that, which also speaks to ensuring that there's a variety of play equipment to meet all ages and stages that are looking to play in the community. So Councillor Ashford, absolutely. You're seeing a whole host of really neat play physical equipment for young children, for teens, and even for adults to participate. If you were peeking at the swing components, you'll see that those designs have all been changed up. There are accessible swings that have been added, as well as disc swings that have been added, and adult swings capable of holding adult weights. So again, all ages and stages are we're attempting to try and embrace everybody with these.
Yeah. Follow up?
Sorry, yeah, just an additional question with it. Now, I've been circulating this with a few of the parents in the community, and especially with students in wheelchairs. The one comment was, I guess the only one I'd really consider going to was the Wabano Park, because that looked to be the one that would have the most that their child could do. And in some, I've seen some where the playground has a very long ramp so that the child can get to, because in a certain sense, it's to climb is going to be difficult if you're unable to climb. So like you have a climber that's, so we kind of understand, but is there things that you can identify at each playground that someone who isn't able to climb could do. And then also with just rather than asking a third question again, is the fencing around it? It looked like it was kind of just for the renderings, or is that fencing the fencing we should be kind of expecting to be around the different playgrounds?
Through your worship, just making a few notes so I didn't lose track of those questions. So from an accessibility perspective, the Canadian Playground Institute, new builds are required to be compliant with Annex H, okay, which is the accessibility component. All playgrounds that are provided to council this evening are compliant with Annex H. You're asking specifically which playgrounds have accessible components. Every single one of them in front of you this evening has accessible components, whether they be ground level play systems or ground systems where one would be transferred onto said play system. So every single illustration, every single park has various components that would be wheelchair accessible. It must be kept at front of mind when we speak of accessibility. Accessibility could mean a wide range of a whole host of things. So again, all these playgrounds that have been designed are compliant with Annex H and are compliant with the accessibility standard.
Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you, Ms. McNamara. I appreciated the renderings that we saw tonight, certainly with this resolution. And yes, I appreciate also you explaining about the accessibility and how this CRCS has that in mind for all areas of the playgrounds, because it does seem that this was something that didn't really come to the Accessibility Advisory Committee to see these playgrounds in renderings in advance of tonight. But certainly you explaining this, I think, is really helpful for any of the members and the rest of us to appreciate. The other thing that I'm wondering about is two more things. One would be that as you've explained about the age that these playgrounds are really designed for, is there a recommendation of any sort of signage that basically says children under 5 or children, etc., should be supervised by a parent? Is that a plan to be in all of these parks? And as well as kind of relates to my next part of the question, which would be, although there's different designs at the different parks, which seems like a really great idea, when the design was chosen for each park, were there studies or stats done that said, hey, basically in that area, there tends to be more children of a certain age? I realize it covers everything, but some of these playgrounds definitely do look a little different. So did that come into effect at all?
Through your worship. So your first question with regard to signage and ages, absolutely. That's part of when the playground systems are manufactured, there's language written right on the system that talks about the ages and stages, and that hands-on parenting is required for those under 5 years of age. So that signage is standard for all new playground installs. Your second question with regard to the chosen types of equipment at each park and knowing the demographic and stages. Oh, I wish I had a crystal ball to know who lived where, how old the children were, and who gathered at each of those locations. So the way we best addressed that was you look at the current system that is in place. You monitor the usage, you see what kind of families are coming there, and you take a look at the newest emerging trends. You're looking for the cool stuff that kids really want to be on, and you're looking at the neighborhood you're servicing. What staff and the practitioner tried to accomplish here was ensuring the standard, the level of service that the town has provided in parks for many years is not being reduced. What council sees in front of them is significant improvements to all play spaces, and it's getting us with the times.
Exactly. Councilor McCann.
My favorite was always the merry-go-round. How come you don't see them anymore? They're too dangerous, right?
Through you, your worship, if I can take a stab at that one, we're talking standards now. We talk liability, we talk playground safety. A cute little sidebar from myself: when I was a child playing at Cherry Street Park, we actually did have one of those merry-go-round gyro units. I absolutely flew off it as a child. I absolutely knocked myself out. And I was very, very thankful that the Jones family lived at the corner. And one of my friends were able to knock on the door, and Mrs. Jones called my mother and let her know what happened. Again, very different time, very different place, very different equipment you see in front of you today.
I knew you were going to say that. I always used to like the buzz you get when you go around.
Well, we
Thank you.
we can spin you around here, Councilor McCann, if you want. Yeah. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McNamara. Item 951, moved by Councilor Borneman, seconded by Councilor McDonald. Whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report on June 2nd, 2015, which included 94 calls to action to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. And whereas all Canadians and all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation, and whereas recommendation number 80 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called upon the federal government in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to establish a statutory holiday, a national day for truth and reconciliation, to ensure that the public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. And whereas the federal government declared September 30th, 2021 as the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, also known as National Orange Shirt Day, and established September 30th as an annual federal statutory holiday. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Parry Sound does hereby recognize September 30th, 2024 as National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, also known as National Orange Shirt Day. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councilor Borneman, seconded by Councilor McDonald. Whereas the Town of Parry Sound is entering into an agreement to receive Canada Community Building Funds, which is administered by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario on behalf of the federal government. And whereas the funding allocations are less than 2% over the year for the next 5 years, and whereas amounts allocated in the past 5 years were less than 2% over year, 2% per year over year. And whereas non-residential construction price inflation has risen by 29% since the end of 2020, and municipalities are facing soaring costs for infrastructure projects without a corresponding growth in revenue. And whereas there is a requirement for municipalities to complete an asset management plan and a housing needs analysis. And whereas both of these plans show a large funding gap between infrastructure and housing needs and the funds available from property taxation. And whereas the town of Parry Sound has over $369 million in core infrastructure assets, and like other municipalities, its infrastructure is aging in the need of upgrades and replacement. And whereas the town's asset management plan requires $14.8 million annually to maintain existing assets based on current available funding, is resulting in an annual infrastructure deficit of over $9.9 million. And whereas municipalities are facing a gap in federal infrastructure funding as the 10-year Investing in Canada infrastructure program has come to an end. Now therefore be resolved, the town of Parry Sound calls on the federal government to provide a supplement to the allocations provided to municipalities under the AMO CBBF agreement for 2024 to 2028 for the same amount that was allocated, effectively doubling the allocation for those years. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to MFOA, AMO, MP Scott Aitchison, and the Federal Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland. Any discussion? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. They need to upgrade this, even when with the pool funding and the ISIP funding. You know, we went through that COVID area, costs rose 40%, that kind of stuff, but we had to scale back. It wasn't a case of being able to do what we originally planned. So we need other levels of government to step up. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound hereby support the municipality of Whitestone's 2024-332 resolution, which calls for the Near North District School Board to immediately halt their plan to put kindergarten to grade 6 elementary students into the Parry Sound High School, and revise their elementary school plan so that the K to 6 students already enrolled in McDougall Public School can remain, and the students enrolled from Nobel Public School can be integrated into McDougall Public School, and that if operating the McDougall Public School is not a viable long-term solution due to the repairs that are required, the Near North District School Board immediately began conversations with the Ministry of Education to seek capital improvement funding or to fund the build for a brand new McDougall Public School on the same property, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Near North District School Board, Premier of Ontario, the Honorable Doug Ford, Minister of Education, Parry Sound Muskoka MPP, Graydon Smith. Councilor McCann?
Well, I certainly support this. When I noticed this in the North Star a couple of weeks ago, when I saw the correspondence, I had asked about bringing it forward then, but what was explained to me was that the horse had already left the barn, so to speak. So I'm certainly supportive of this, but what has changed? Is there any new ray of hope that we can revisit this again?
I don't know if there's a new ray of hope, but I was asked by a school board trustee to. Certainly, it would be good to support it.
I certainly would like to see this happen.
So that's why it's here. Yeah. Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So yeah, the horse has kind of left the stable, but I think the more we make them aware that we're really not happy, we just do that. As a side note, they had a special board meeting because there was a number of pieces of correspondence that the trustees were actually not getting. So I hope that that goes to the board. They need to keep in the loop. I can tell you right here, right now, if there was something that we weren't getting and staff were holding it back, there'd be a guillotine in the middle of the room. But our staff have been always excellent and made sure that we get all correspondence that's going, which is great. Okay, so moved by Councillor Ashford and seconded by Councillor Boleski, the bylaw number 2024-7444, being a bylaw to authorize renewal of an agreement with Four Sports Incorporated for operation of the Pro Shop at the Bobby Orr Community Center for a 3-year term, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Ashford, seconded by Councillor Boleski, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion on that? Councillor Keith?
Yes, my question for Ms. McNamara is the rental fee here, has that changed over the years, or is it the same amount? And does it include any cost of living or whatever, inflation, that sort of thing?
Through your worship, absolutely. What council has in front of them this evening sees a 3.3% increase from the previous agreement.
Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that bylaw number 2024-7445, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? No? You don't want to go home? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So, prior to adjourning, I would like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next meeting of council with the town of Parry Sound scheduled for Tuesday, October the 1st, 2024 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the Town of Parry Sound Council Chambers at 52 Seguin Street, entrance by Gibson Street. It will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca and use the search bar. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. And for Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Just as notice for council for the October 1st meeting, I will be in Toronto. I am emceeing a housing symposium that AMO is putting on in Toronto for 2 days. And they have asked me to be one of the people to do that. So I am doing that for them. It will be people from right across Ontario coming together to talk about housing issues. And hopefully some recommendations will come out of it. And then they are passed along to the province, that hopefully the province will actually listen. So we can always hope. Anyway. Councilor McDonald, okay. You ready for it? Okay, all right. So I'm gonna say thank you, everyone, and have a good night.